His interests are wide with a deep passion. Having only recently transitioned into photography full-time, Scott has achieved very quick success and award-winning photojournalist for USA Today, Associated Press, LA Press, and for breaking stories with news and sports coverage. He's been nationally published by a lot of news organizations, USA Today, New York Times, Washington Post, and others. And Scott is also, which I want to hear, how in the world he is a drone pilot. So anyhow, scottclause is going to tell us about it. Thank you.
All right, well, this is interesting for me coming full circle. I was a member here several years ago. I guess it's been about 5 years since I've been here. So, you know, my career path has been just very unique, to say the least. For over 25 years, I was in corporate marketing. I headed up a couple of different ad agencies. I ran an in-house corporate ad agency for a franchise system, putting together TV commercials, brochures, and that kind of thing. And I guess I just developed my sense of photography from working with graphic artists and working with other photographers. And I was a hobbyist photographer. I traveled a lot, traveled extensively, so I was always bringing my camera and taking photos. And my style was really just photojournalism, without even trying to be a photojournalist. And so at one point, a newspaper published some of my photos. I called up and said, hey, can I be a freelance photographer? They said, sure. So I leveraged that to call another paper and said, can I be a freelancer for you? They said, sure. So from August through December, I did, what was it, 2015, I think I did over 100 freelance assignments. And never once did anyone call me back and say, this is wrong, this is terrible, you need to do it differently. It just all worked out. And at the end of the year, I went and asked to do more freelance work, and they said, why don't you just take the job? So I said, look, I don't think I'm qualified, but it's on you. If you want to hire me, that's completely on you. I'm not BSing anybody and, you know, trying to sell something that I'm not. And I just started shooting, and that first year was really a blur to me because I didn't know what I didn't know. I've never worked in journalism, never worked as a photographer. I just kept my head down and didn't say much and just took on assignments. That first year I did over 850 assignments. I shot over 300,000 photos and published 22,000 photos. And so, again, that year was just a blur, and started working with USA Today. I got my first assignment with USA Today on a murder trial in Lake Charles. And it was the oldest cold case ever prosecuted in U.S. history. It was Felix Vale, who murdered his wife in 1962 in Lake Charles. And it was one of our reporters that researched the story, published the story, brought the evidence that he found in his research to the DA. The DA opened the case and prosecuted it. And so I was on the team doing a documentary behind the scenes. I was shooting all the day-to-day footage of that. And that's where I kind of got my start with USA Today, and started picking up more and more assignments. I've got a bunch of photos. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to kind of go through them and try to show you my photos and tell you a little bit about some of the backstory of some of these. The hardest part of doing this presentation is just picking a handful of photos, because I have so many that they're all like my little babies. I enjoy each and every one of them. My memory is as bad as probably anyone else's in this room, except when it comes to a photograph. I can see someone on the street and say, I took your picture 3 years ago. I just remember everything about the photo. So I remember my photos, and I recognize my photos when I see them published somewhere. So probably one of the most exciting things, I think, that a lot of people think my job is very exciting, that I'm on the sidelines of the Saints games. And yeah, that's cool, but it's not a fan experience. It's a working experience. I mean, I have to really be careful. I'm there as a photojournalist, as a photographer, not as a fan. And yes, I want to see the Saints win. No one lost more last year when the Saints didn't go to the Super Bowl than me, because I was the photographer for the Super Bowl for the Saints, and I also had a book deal with USA Today. All my photos from the season was going to be published if they made it to the Super Bowl. So I lost a book deal and a trip to the Super Bowl. I was about 20, 30 feet away from that play, that no call. I was in the end zone, but I had my long lens, so I didn't actually get a good photo of it. I started shooting, again, that's the photographer experience is you're always looking for a photo. So when that play happened, I didn't really see what happened, but I saw the reaction of the players off the bench, so I started photographing the players because their reactions were more than just, a bad call. And I heard everybody yelling. I'm like, what are y'all yelling about? It's a bad call. Get over it. And then I finally saw the replay and realized, really what had happened. And so yeah, it was a surreal moment. But I'll give you a little piece of trivia, because you know how the Saints run to the sidelines and they, when the defense makes a big play, they run to the sidelines and they pose for a photo. Well, that started, I don't know if you know the first player that ever did that and when it was, but this is the first player that did that. It was Marshawn Lattimore, and the first photographer who took that photo was me. So that's my piece of trivia, claim to fame, I guess. So Marshawn runs up to me. I was in the corner. I was actually changing sides because I thought Detroit was going to score. So I'm getting ready to move to the other side of the field. Pick six, he runs it into the corner. I happen to be standing there in the corner. I took his picture. And then he turns to his left. All the other defensive players run to him and they mug for a photo. But all the guys in that group had big lenses. They couldn't take the photo. So I ran behind him and I got that photo. And then this is a photo from someone took from across the field. So I'm basically the only guy taking a picture of him. The other guy that got a photo got like his face. That's all they could get into the shot. So I took this photo at the end of the game. I run onto the field and there's Drew Brees and Stafford Barnett talking, and I'm in the room after the game looking at my photos, and I see this photographer, and he's sitting right behind me. He's from the Detroit Daily Press. And I turn to him and I say, hey, I got a photo of you. You probably got one of me. You want to swap them? So that's his photo of me. On the other side, I think my photo's better than his. But. All right, so last fall was the Paradise, California fire in Northern California. I was out shooting playoff volleyball. It's about this time of year last year. I was in the state playoffs, and they gave me a call and said, I just heard on the news about Paradise. Paradise completely burned to the ground. The whole town burned. And they sent me out. I left that next day to go out there as a drone pilot, because I fly drones for USA Today doing aerial photography as well. And I arrived there the next day, went straight into Paradise, and just started documenting. It was a real unique situation for me because I had never been in a wildfire. I'm pretty comfortable around hurricanes and floods. I've got a little experience with that. For the fire, on the way back to New Orleans, I started calling people. Blair Rivette at Youngsville gave me all the turnout gear I needed, my boots, my hat, my fireman's helmet, so at least I looked like I knew what I was doing when I got there. But the first couple days, I tried to be real cautious because I just needed to not get myself in a bad situation. I stayed close to the firefighters, but I really wanted to document that whole process and what the firefighters go through. So this is a shot in Paradise as well. That was in a neighborhood. Every home is completely burned. So I took these fire photos, and the backstory of the fire photos is what it takes to get a photo. Taking a picture and snapping, using the camera is probably the easiest part of the job. Anybody can do that. You can learn how to take a photo on YouTube in 30 minutes. The hardest part, or the skill part, is getting to the photo. So my day began around 6 a.m. I went to the briefing at the fairgrounds. It's 5,000 firefighters. They're all being briefed, and everything's in quadrants of where they're going to go and work. So I'm looking at this board and I'm talking to firefighters going, okay, what quadrant are they really working the front lines? Where's the fire at? And I'm getting these guys to tell me, well, these guys from Oregon will be going to section Quebec. So I look at Quebec, okay, that's where I gotta go. And where's the guys from Oregon? Well, they're over there in that back lot. Well, there's 5,000 firefighters, thousands of trucks, everybody looks the same. I gotta go find these guys from Oregon. So I take off and I find the guys from Oregon somehow and find out where they're going, get permission to meet up with them. Then I had to get to the top of this mountain where the command chief is, and he's, conducting operations for everything. And of course, he's busy and he's talking, and I walk up and he's looking at me at the corner of his eye, but I've got to now work my way in with him because I've got to kind of get his approval. I don't want to be out there, with him not wanting me there. So as they're doing their briefings, I just hung around quietly and waited for my time, and then I got him to talk to me a couple minutes, and after we talked and got to know each other a little bit, he agreed to attach me to an engine company. So my day began at 6. That was around noon when I got to the top of that mountain with them. Had to wait around for an engine company later in the afternoon. It wasn't until probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon that I finally make it down into this valley. What they're doing is they're moving the fire it's moving south towards a body of water. And so they cut these bulldozer paths, and then they do back burns to control the fuel that the fire can burn. So I attached to this engine company, and we're there kind of waiting around for things to happen. This guy was cooking or warming up burritos on the engine block, so we had a joke-telling contest, and so I was really just trying to get to know these guys because I'm attaching myself to them, and so I've got to make sure that, you know, they've got a reason to want to help me get out of there. I'm taking some photos of them, and I'm showing the photos, and I really use my photos as currency. You know, these guys, in search and rescue guys in general, you know, they don't stop and take selfies of themselves all the time. So I'm out there documenting them, taking photos, and I'm showing them my photos. And I agree to share my photos with them. You know, it's my currency. And by doing that, they're like, hey, yeah, come with us. And hey, we got extra food if you need something to eat. And just as a side note, when I go into any of these situations, I do hurricanes and floods and that kind of stuff too. But I go in completely self-contained. I carry basically everything I need for 3 or 4 days. I sleep wherever I need to sleep. I sleep on the ground, sleep in my truck. I carry my own food and water. Now, once I get to know them, they usually take pretty good care of me. They find me some food. They find me a place to sleep. But if I don't find that, I'm prepared just to do whatever I have to do to get that shot. So once night fell, we went in, and then we start working the fire line. And so I'm just really just trying to document the firefighters. When I'm out there, my number one rule is I never want to be a part of the photo. I never want to influence somebody's action. I never want to tell somebody to look at me. I never want to tell somebody to, hey, can you stand over there? Hey, can you get out of my way? I never say a word. So when you see my photos, those photos are really what is happening in that moment. Now, they might see me and try to do something because they see that I'm there, but it's never because I'm telling them to do it. I'm trying to be as much of a fly on the wall as I can be. This guy actually took a pretty good look at me because I came up pretty close to him, got that shot, and then he looked over his hose like, who is this guy? What is he doing? So I move in real fast, take my shot, and then get out of their way but I do want to get in kind of close. So it was nighttime photography, which is something I've never really practiced at. It's just, you just try to figure it out, try to capture a little bit of light wherever you can. This is a back burn, so he's firing a flare gun into this brush that's controlled. So they got bulldozer cuts on one side, they got fire hose on the other side, and they're going to burn out this brush. So when the fire does come to that area, there's no more fuel, and they can't burn anymore. So that's how they control it and make it stop. Fight fire with fire. That's the old saying, and that's exactly what they're doing here. So then I made it up into Paradise, California, which is a small town, a lot of retirees in this town. The fire actually started in a valley right below. It was called the campfire, and the reason they call it a campfire is because it was on Camp Road, or all the fires are named after the location of where it started. So it started at the bottom of this, and now it's been determined that it was a power line that sparked the fire. But then the Santa Ana winds at this time of year were unusually strong. It blew the fire straight up the mountain, and they had very little time to react. And so by 8 a.m., people were going to work, kids are going to school, this little small town, this fire is raging up the mountain, and they're having to go back home, evacuate. And I was amazed at the number of cars on the side of the road, and just not cars that broke down, that were brand new cars, nice cars. And it made me wonder, you're in a fire situation, you think your car is a pretty safe place. So what is it that makes it a good idea to get out of your car? It just has to be just one of the worst possible scenarios, kind of hell on earth. If you're in a fire and you have to get out of your car and run, and try to, the traffic was jammed and you couldn't get somewhere, or the fire's blowing over your car, maybe caught your tire on fire or something like that. And then what if you're not the kind of person that can run and can, walk for a long distance? Then what do? Do you just jump on the back of a car that somebody else picks you up? And, there's just a lot of scenarios that could have been going on for people, with cars everywhere. I did a little research. It looks like aluminum melts at around 2,000 degrees. So that's the aluminum wheels off of that car that are melted. This was interesting to me because I'm in this neighborhood. Every house in this neighborhood, hundreds of homes, they're all burnt to the ground. But there's nothing recognizable of the house. So any of the building materials are completely gone. Everything there is very, very gray. The first 2 days I was there, I was wearing tried to wear a mask. And then after that, we just stopped wearing it because you wake up, you feel like you've been smoking pine needle cigarettes all day long. But they're just smoke and ash in the air because everything that's combustible burns, turns to ash, and then it blows away. So this was a shed. You can see the drill press, you can see a table saw, some other metal items. So all the wood framing is gone. It doesn't, I've always seen a burnt house, it burns, it's charred, there's all kinds of charred wood and remains. That wasn't there. There were pieces of the home still there, the metal pieces, you can see the frames of the chairs, the tables, but there were no more building materials as far as the walls were concerned. Again, just cars on the side of the road. This car was in the road, and you can see it's been pushed off. They came through with a dozer or something and pushed it off the road just to open the roadway. This is a car parked in a driveway and in a neighborhood. Again, molten metal just dripping down. When we got into this town, we also, there was not very many people there. There was another news crew maybe, and we really didn't see many people there. But it also felt to us a lot like hallowed ground. I mean, in the first place, when I'm taking photos, I'm never going to touch anything. I'm never going to disrupt anything. I'm never going to move something to take a photo. So I'm just taking photos of what I see and what is there. But it really had this feeling of a hallowed ground. And afterwards, as we start uncovering the number of people that are missing, there's still over 200 or 300 people that are still missing from this fire, meaning that they never did locate them. So they perished in their homes, and it was a matter of trying to sift through ashes and find a ring or something that would help identify that this person was there. But there's still a lot of people that they probably never will find what happened to them. They're just completely incinerated. That's the inside of a car, a little bit of the inside of a car that's left. This caught my attention again because I'm walking through this, all these mailboxes, and I'm thinking, who took time to pile up? That's the first thought in my mind. I can remember thinking, who took time to pile up these mailboxes? And then I realized there was probably a 2x6 or something that the mailboxes were sitting on. So the wood is gone, the mailboxes fall, and that's what's left. And the guardrails, the metal guardrails on the side of a road, the guardrails just be sitting there, and you'd see the screws stuck in them, and there's just no wood. There's no wood product left. And that was just it took me a minute to kind of wrap my brain around that. And somebody's truck and trailer, cargo trailer, just completely burned up. So that, again, the California fire was a really amazing, and it was very interesting to work. It was very educational for me in a way, and it was also just so catastrophic, but it was also very good photos. I kind of I'm trying to document what's going on, and it was just a unique opportunity for me to document everything. This is a map this is from Hurricane Irma. I got called out for Hurricane Irma, and they sent us to Tallahassee. So as the storm's coming in, I drove through the storm to go down to Tampa. Then we get to Tampa, and they said, keep going, go ahead and go all the way down to Miami. So we get to Miami, and they said, okay, well, they're going to open up the Keys tomorrow, so we want you to go into the Keys. And I'm a drone pilot, and I'm there to fly drones to get aerial video of all this stuff. And So we began lining up at 5 in the morning in Homestead, and they open up the keys. We get down there. I make it all the way down through the Keys. The Marathon was probably the worst hit, and make it all the way down to Key West. And we worked that day in Key West. We make our way back to Miami, there's a lot of things that I didn't get to photograph and shoot that day, and I said, well, now I got a great game plan for tomorrow. When I head back down, I've got all kinds of stuff. They called me up and they said, hey, we need you in Jacksonville. And just turn over all your info to these other guys. They're gonna come in and go down to Key West. I said, okay, great. I'm giving these guys all my intel, because that's the hard part of an assignment, is getting the photos. The first day you get in there is just trying to figure out where you are and trying to understand where the photos are. So we go up to Jacksonville, work in Jacksonville a day or two, and they said, now we need you back in Fort Lauderdale. Get down to Fort Lauderdale, and then made my way back up to Tallahassee and back. So that was 3,600 miles in 1 week. Wow. That was a fun week of travel. So when I get down to Key West, this is the southernmost marker in Key West, and I'm sure a lot of you have taken your picture next to this marker. You can see there's a lot of the paint that's missing on it. What I found interesting here is that paint was it was well over 1/4 of an inch thick. And I guess to keep it nice, they constantly paint it to keep it fresh and looking good. But when it blasted off, it was 1/4 of an inch thick. So it was just kind of interesting. This is the roadway down through the Keys, probably like around Marathon. This is near Marathon, boats on the road. This is down in Key West. This is right by that southernmost marker, right in that corner. And you can see the road, that's a blacktop road, but it's got this mud and dirt on it. Well, as the water came in, it brought in all this sea life and urchins and algae or whatever, and then it all receded back out, and the sun came out and it got nice and hot. And that was probably the worst smell I had ever smelled in my life. It was really thick. That was probably about 3 inches thick right there, and just had a god-awful smell. We went down to the Hemingway House as well. The Hemingway House did great, so we did an interview with those guys and documented that. This is a house that was getting ready to fall into itself and along the way. And then you find, making lemonade. So that was a good shot there. Now, last summer, how much on time? Okay.
Like 10 minutes.
All right.
15 minutes.
So this is, last summer I got the opportunity to embed with the 256th Brigade, which is based in South Louisiana. The brigade was doing training up in Camp Shelby, Mississippi in July. I thought, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun. So I embedded with these guys for a week, and they really kind of wanted to give us the embed treatment. So I basically was handed a cot and a tent and said, here you go. And I went off into the field with these guys for a week. I got real lucky. I connected with the 2nd Battalion, which is Lieutenant Colonel Scott Desimo. You know Colonel Desimo, his nephews are Mike Desimo from UL and Matt Desimo, the head coach at Ascension. But he's from Kaplan or Abbeville, and he's just been named the commander of the 256th Brigade. So he's moving up in the world. Colonel Desimo's a great guy. He did a real good job of kind of taking me under his wing and helping me out. But what I did was, and what I tried to prove to these guys is that, I wasn't going to be a burden to them in any way. I was there to document. I wanted to get the good shots, and I needed to carry my own weight. So I did everything that they did. I slept on the ground. I never showered. I sweated as much as a human can possibly sweat in a week. When we would go on missions, and what they were doing is these war game training. So they all had these Miles gear, these detectors, and it's like a big laser tag system, and they all can shoot each other. And it's game on the whole time. If you're driving down the road, somebody can jump out the bushes and shoot you, and you're out of the game. So that's basically what it is. But I wanted to accompany them. So my first day out there, we're out on missions, and I'm not really knowing. I never was in the military. I had to, number one, learn military life, just understanding what the heck they're talking about with all these acronyms. We got to go to the TOC and the TAC, and they got all these different acronyms. And So I'm trying to run to the front as they're doing their maneuvers. We're doing a maneuver to engage the enemy. And so I'm trying to get in front of them so they can be coming through the woods at me and get a shot in front of them. As they would come by, then I would try to flank them and get in front of them again. And I did pretty good at that, but I realized it wore me out. That night I was almost heat exhausted. But so I was really just trying to make sure I carried my own weight. I did everything that they did. So if we were going on a hike through the woods, I was hiking through the woods. If we were jumping, water, I was in the water with them. I was sleeping out on the ground, eating MREs. I did everything that they did. So they really came to kind of give me a lot of access because they knew I wasn't going to get in their way. And if I did get in their way, they knew I would get out of the way real fast too. So what I was really trying to do is just document Army life, what it's like for these guys, what they're going through, and just try to give you a real look at everything. Guy, walking through the water. Of course, they're on a maneuver and they're having to, when the first guy goes through the water, the rest of the column goes through that same spot. I was able to walk upstream a little bit and find me a log and then jump across. I don't have to follow all the rules, but I did want to, get down and get ahead of them and get in positions to see things. This turned into a night mission. We went out late in the afternoon. This is with another company, and you can see the sun's going down. We're walking out, and as the sun's coming down, we start getting enemy fire coming back at us from what they call the op force. The op force are the regular Army troops that they dress as this opposition warfighter, and they're all very well trained, and they can probably take out most of these guys. So this is a training mission for them, but it's as real as it gets when you're coming over that hilltop and they start firing and you're hearing all that firing coming at you. And of course, I'm basically invisible because I'm not wearing any miles gear, so I can just run around anywhere as I want. But it's real, it gets your heart pumping. You can definitely see these guys' heart pumping and their eyes wide, and you can hear the sergeant or lieutenant yelling at them, move out, and these guys are hunkered down behind a tree, and it's pretend, but it's real. They're hunkered down behind a tree, and he's yelling at them, get up, go, So you can about imagine what it's like when you're in real fire, and somebody's yelling at you, go, and the bullets are coming at you, and your brain's saying, are you crazy? I should be hunkered down. But that's what this training does for them. It helps them understand what that's going to be like. This lieutenant actually, I talked to him afterwards because I just walked up. I didn't get a chance to even introduce myself to any of them, and I just started accompanying them. And he's got this pack on, and I thought, man, he's got a lot of radio gear. And I came to talk to him afterwards. He carried his entire pack with him, his rucksack, really just to prove a point to all the infantry guys that were complaining about things. He threw everything on and he went on the mission with it. He's carrying everything with him, and I thought, that's pretty impressive. Lombardo is his name, John Lombardo. Then we go out on the range to do live fire, and so Colonel Desimo gets me out there, and he's like, hey, you want to come on? They actually had first wouldn't allow me to go on the range for live fire, and then he came out and he goes, hey, you want to come out there on the range? I'm like, sure. He goes, get him all, so he had to give me all my plates and armor to be able to go out there, but he let me go out there, and I think I have a picture, it's not in this package though, but they must have got me like a bomb squad vest because it had the shoulder protection, and everybody else had these real lightweight things. This thing had to be 100 pounds, 150 pounds, and I'm carrying cameras and gear, and I'm running to get places, and I know they were just laughing at me going, look at that guy, see if he's gonna make it. It had to be the heaviest vest I ever wore. Then I connected with 3rd Battalion when we go out to we're dropping rounds. It's a mortar battalion, so again, just understanding all of that, seeing all that, getting close to these guys, and just again trying to get the shots. They're dropping rounds. And this one I'm kind of proud of, because I actually got you can see in the smoke up there's a mortar round coming out. So Now this is where they build a kind of a sandbox. So they plan out the mission. So all the officers will stand around and they plan out the roads and the tree line, and they show where everything's going to go. They have a little kit with little items that they can use, or they just use branches and sticks or pieces of cardboard, and they kind of make a little visual. But this is really helpful because I'm sitting here with these guys talking, and I'm watching their planning, and I'm understanding it. And then as we get ready to go out that night, I said, I think I'm gonna do something different. I can get a ride to go meet the op force. I'm gonna go meet the op force, and I'm gonna watch them come in instead of trying to go through the woods at night, because it's hard to photograph at night. So let's go check out the op force. So this is one of the regular Army guys from Fort Polk. So they've got like a little bunker set up, and this is us just waiting for them to come through the woods. But when I got to that section, I looked around and I said, there's the tree line, there's the road. I go, they're coming through right there. That's where they're gonna breach. So I got set up, and I knew exactly where they were coming in because I had seen the game plan. But I didn't tell these guys.
They could see where you set
Yeah,
up.
but I knew where to go, so it was pretty good intel for me. You know, again, it's nighttime, and basically for me, I don't shoot with strobes or flashes. I shoot everything with regular light, natural light. So I saw this guy firing, and when he fired, I said, oh, I can get him. I know I can get him. So I just waited for him to start firing again. I got his gunfire to light up his face. So that's the shot of the op force. Well, I should have gone the other way. That's the before, right? So you can kind of see him there, and then this is Captain Cormier. He was a lieutenant when I met him 2 years ago in 2016. I embedded with his unit out of Crowley to go down and cover the 2016 flood. So I was doing some work with them. So it was really surreal because I kind of got abandoned by my PIO, the public information officer, and I didn't have a contact, and I wanted to try to find a different unit to get with, and I went to the command center, and I dropped Captain Cormier's name. They said, yeah, well, he's with this group over here. I said, well, can I get a ride there? They said, yeah, this meal truck is going over there. So I jumped on the truck, and I landed with him, and I said, hey, Captain Cormier, remember me? He goes, yeah. I said, can you put me up for a night or so? So he said, yeah, you can go in the woods right there and set up your tent. And so I connected with him for the next day or two, and I followed his group around as they had Blackhawks come in, and we took a jump, and we stepped off on another mission with the Blackhawks. So this is a neat shot because this is General Curtis, the general over everything in the operation, and so this guy's telling him a joke. I can't really tell you exactly what he was saying, but when you see a general belly laughing like that, you got to make sure you keep that photo and send that one to the general. So I think you're going to like this one. So again, just day in the life, you know, just trying to capture everything these guys are going through. This is where we're getting ready to step off onto the final assault, the 3-day mission where it's all live. We don't really sleep very much. We took Blackhawks. We landed at like 10 o'clock at night. We were up the next morning. We hiked through the woods till 2 in the afternoon, slept until midnight, and then we stepped off on the assault into this mock city, which is this kind of, it's a complete mock city with the what is it called? The mosque, with the mosque and all the music, and they're blaring music, all kinds of noise, and they have to assault this city. So that was the final. And I'm going through these photos, and I'll get to the actual assault on the city. So everybody's gearing up, getting ready to go. You know, this is where we were sleeping. You know, once we pulled in, we just find a comfy spot. I learned the best spots are if you can get the spot on top of the Humvee, that's great. And if you can get to know the medics. The medic vehicles are air conditioned. You got to stay close to those guys. You jump in there, hang out with those guys. So you start learning, you know. You know what I love about this photo? It's a great photo, and he looks great. He's a warrior. But if I don't take this photo, nobody sees this. He's the only guy that sees this. You know, he's on top of a truck on a 50 caliber. So this is the city. I'm on the top of the mosque. Sun's coming up. That opposition. I mean, the 2nd Battalion is coming through. That tree line right there. This is an opposition force guy on the right. doesn't know it yet, but he's gonna die, right? And I saw this coming. I saw the assault coming. I saw these guys coming. I saw this guy kind of looking around. I said, "Oh, he's gonna get it." You know, got a good photo of him. 50 calibers, everybody just firing everything, and just, you know, I'm in this city walking down the streets, and everybody's firing, and of course I can't be shot because it's all lasers. And, you know, but it's very, very loud. It's very, very real as well. So they're patrolling through, and 2 different battalions are coming through from different directions, and they're having to coordinate everything. It's one of the sergeants directing. Again, just getting tight on these guys, trying to get good shots. This on the right is Colonel Desimo. I found Colonel Desimo. I had somebody tell me he's on the top of this building, and he's actually coordinating all the troops and all of his companies. So he's getting all this information and coordinating. So he had to get to this spot. This guy on the left side is his radio operator. When I came to the door, that's exactly what I saw. He was trained on that door, and anybody coming through that rooftop door was going to get shot. He's protecting the colonel while the colonel's doing the operations. And so I'm like, "Hey, he's got a camera, so leave me alone, Frankie." So I sat there with them for just a minute, and then, of course, once we realized the mission was over, the colonel lit up a cigar, and I got the shot of him in the cigar. So.
All right.
All right.
If anyone wants to ask a question.
Yep.
I have a photography question. Do you feel like in the process from moving from film and development to digital that you lost anything in the process?
I knew very little in film. I did it years ago and didn't really know what I was doing, but I really learned everything in digital. I learned how to photograph by doing it wrong. I never read a book or watched anything. I would literally take a picture and go, "That ain't right." Then I would move stuff around, take another picture until it got right. So digital allowed me to just take pictures and then figure out what was wrong until I could get to what was right. Without doing that, I wouldn't have ever learned. But for the guys that did it back then, I completely admire those guys, because this job is tough with digital. To do it with film would have been, those guys are incredibly talented. Yes, Sharon?
Do you have a favorite assignment?
I'm sorry?
Whose assignment?
Favorite.
Favorites are so difficult because I like so many different things for so many different reasons. I covered all of Corporal Middlebrook, the funeral procession for him. I was honored to do that. Coach Robichaud covered that. I covered the protest in Baton Rouge and the funerals for the 3 officers that were killed there. Again, it's an honor to cover those kinds of things and be able to cover. It's difficult to cover a funeral because you want to be respectful, but yet you also want to be a journalist. So balancing it, and I think I did a good job balancing it, so I'm kind of proud of that.
All right. Thank y'all so much, and thank you. We gotta take a picture.
Show us something.